I'm Ed Adams, and you're listening to the AAFCA Podcast. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the AAFCA Podcast. And in this episode, we take a peek into the literary world with Watkins Loomis Agency President Gloria Loomis. Now, I'll outline this episode after the break. The AAFCA Podcast is sponsored by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. Let's go back a bit to 1928, to the very first Academy Awards, and in the category of Best Adapted Screenplay, the winner was Benjamin Glaser for Seventh Heaven, based on the play of the same name. Now, since then, some of the biggest films of our time are based on plays and literary works. Now, some winning works that come to mind include Gone with the Wind, In the Heat of the Night, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Godfather, The Silence of the Lambs, Forrest Gump, Precious, 12 Years a Slave, Moonlight, Black Klansman, and most recently, at the 96th Academy Awards, Cord Jefferson won for American Fiction, based off the book Erasure by Percival Everett. How a book, stage play, or comic book gets greenlit for film or television varies, but for the most part, what we do know is that agents and publishers work tirelessly to support the works and the authors that they represent. Which brings us to our guest today, President of the Watkins Loomis Agency, Gloria Loomis. Now, the Watkins Loomis Agency is a literary agency founded by Anne Watkins in 1908, and according to their website, they are a full-service literary agency that specializes in literary fiction, memoirs, biographies, and political journalism. Now, Gloria Loomis joined that company in 1975, and she now sits as president of that prestigious company. Now, some of her clients include Walter Mosley, Victor Laval, Howard French, Pernell Joseph, and Ta-Nehisi Coates. Now, I had a chance to talk with Gloria via Zoom about her career, the role of the literary agent, how her clients' books make it from print to screen, and the evolution of the industry. Gloria Loomis, welcome to the AAFCA Podcast.
Very happy to be here.
I am really, really excited. Okay, just to let everybody know, we had an icebreaker earlier this week, and I think I found one of my new favorite people. So let me start the conversation like that.
I'm hoping that I can be helpful to the people who are listening to this, because it's a very tricky business. It's always been, but it certainly is more so now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you became a literary agent and how you kind of got into this industry?
I became a literary agent because I was looking for a part-time job, and this very old, well-established, really old, the agency was founded in 1908 by a woman named Anne Watkins, and it had Dorothy Sayers and it had Edith Wharton. And when I would look through the old files, I found Zora Neale Hurston's papers in there. It was astonishing. Anyway, I loved it. And I quickly started to take on my own clients. And then I became president of the agency in the early 80s. And I was always interested in progressive politics and race. That was something that really interested me greatly. So a lot of the work that I do is in finding publishers for nonfiction books, historians and journalists who tell these stories, and then fiction writers like Walter Mosley, whose several of his books have been turned into films. But that's essentially, once I got started on this road of thinking about these stories should be told, and maybe we could make some kind of difference in the world, I dug in, and it's what's inspired me all the way through. Everybody from Mosley to Ta-Nehisi Coates, to Victor Laval, and so that's where I get my chills and thrills, is working with these people and trying to change the world, which is a tough spot and has always been.
I can only imagine. And when I think about when you take on an author, for example, since you mentioned, and I want to kind of come back to the agency thing in a minute, but you were mentioning like these authors that you've worked with in fiction and nonfiction. I would imagine that you'd have to create a very personal relationship to build all of that and to build that trust and to kind of create the product that you want it to be. Now, I will admit my only real reference to a literary agent is from that movie Down with Love with Sarah Paulson and Renee Zellweger. So my reference may be a little dramatic, but is that what it's like? Is it really kind of it's not like
Well,
they were
how
really
about
good
American
friends.
fiction?
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Wright's literary agent,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He was not the worst of the gang, but he was too cool. Yes, it is a very it's really quite personal because you're handling the person's taste, their ego, their financial situation, and it has to be a really good match. So, and it's a great pleasure. It's one of I mean these people are wonderfully smart and creating work that that I respect greatly, and I think will be helpful to us. So that's my pleasure. And if we don't fit, then we don't stay together. If somebody is looking for an enormous agency with a tremendous, amount of breadth and width, they don't come to me. But it seems to me that there are quite a few authors that I've been working with for 30 years, something like that. Uh, and so we stay together and we have our differences, but I try to help. Always listen to them. They are the creators, and I am the person that brings their work to the world. Um, so that is how that goes. And I just developed this list because it's it's my interest and my hope that these books will bring some change to the world.
I love it. So about that, because when you're working with an author and you have this, this literary work, you probably see more life in it than the author does, right? Where it could become a movie or it could become something. Is that
You
typically
know,
the
I
case, or
I
do they
don't
know?
really look I don't really look at the books as though they can. Some of them seem absolutely logical to be made into films, the way Devil in a Blue Dress did.
Hmm.
That was Walter's first that we worked on together. And in fact, it was made into a terrific film that people still love to this day. And that was one thing, that kind of story. But the series that's going to start today on Nat Geo is written by an historian, scholar at the University of Texas, a guy named Peniel Joseph. And uh, when the mood started to change and the structure started to change of the film industry breaking up into episodic series rather than features, people were looking for different kinds of material. So, and that's not my specialty. In fact, I work with some wonderful agents in Hollywood and always have. If I think something has promise in that area, I will send it to CAA or UTA. There's a man at UTA named Emerson Davis that I like to work with very, very much. He represents Ta-Nehisi uh, and who's now writing Superman, which has not come from a book that he wrote. Uh, but uh, that's a kind of partnership. And they can say to me, don't think this is going to work, or I do think it'll work, but I think it should be a feature film, or I think it could be a series. That's how it goes. And those big agencies have the talent. They have the directors, they have the actors, and they can, put these packages together. So that's a lot of the way I work. I very rarely do it in by myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's how that goes. Um, there are other authors. Here's a man named Victor Laval. I don't know if you know his work or not.
I do
but
not.
it
I was
was
going through
on,
your book list.
it was on, oh, it's marvelous. And
Yeah.
his series was on Apple, The Changeling,
Ah.
Lakeith Stanfield, very, very good. And Victor's got two or three other projects that are novels first, and will be series
So,
as we go along. So that's sometimes people write their own screenplays, sometimes they don't. But I have to leave that to my partners in the West Coast agencies, and they say yes, they want Walter to write the script for Man in My Basement, which is one of his novels that is now being shot in Wales with Corey Hawkins and Willem Dafoe, right as we speak.
oh
So
wow.
yeah, there it's a kind of hit and miss thing.
Hmm.
Plus, I don't have the pressures of the big agencies to constantly be producing, you know, which is nice for me because it leaves me to have my relationships with my clients and you know
Well,
uh
yeah. Well, I'm curious about that. I mean, because like you mentioned that you do some nonfiction stuff. You have some
yes.
certain niche that Watkins Loomis works with. Um, but I would imagine that when you're pitching or you're cultivating the projects, it's a little it's it may be harder. Is it harder to pitch nonfiction than it is to fiction? I know that sounds kind of crazy because I feel like when I say nonfiction, it can be like academic, it can
It's
be this,
changing
you know?
all the time. It's
Yeah.
changing all the time. Really, it depends on how. There's a wonderful book that I represent called Born in Blackness by a man named Howard French, who was a journalist at the New York Times and a bureau chief all over the world. Uh, and I, it brings new history to how slavery started in the 16th century, essentially by the Portuguese going down the west coast of Africa. I cannot see that being, I mean, we can't have a documentary about that, obviously. And it's a long, complex history, but it is
Mhm.
a very, very valuable book. And it's been picked up by, I just had today a request from Howard University. The kids are very interested in this. So there's a balance,
Mhm.
some things are, but my first job is to find a good home and a good editor for my writer, somebody who
Mm.
will appreciate what he's or she has done and produced, and then go from there, then see what happens with that.
Oh wow. That
Yeah.
that brings I always think about the editing process as having been edited. It can be it's a love-hate kind of thing sometimes, right?
Well,
Because
it is unless you really respect your editor
mhm,
and his or her opinions about your work and say, you have to put a stamp on it and you have to
mhm,
say, no, I don't agree with you. And if the editor's any good, he'll say, yes, I respect that. But think about this approach and that approach and then take it in
mhm.
and see. It's a, it's a, it's an interesting relationship but
Yeah.
if you've got the right editor who really respects what the writer is doing, it's going to work and work very well.
Okay.
So
Now I'm gonna ask a pretty basic question. Book tours. Now,
book tours.
is that part of your scope of things as well or
No,
no?
I don't do that, but that essentially stopped during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And of course, doing what we do it, here is
Hmm.
possible for writers to do. I mean, they can have 100 people up on the screen, and then they can be asked to buy the book that you're talking about. And that works very, very well. The publisher doesn't have to pay travel costs and sit in a bookstore in San Francisco with four people in the bookstore. It's very different. And
Uh,
big media is also, of course, we've had, and everyone hopes for Oprah, and that show which has done wonders for Kanahasi and others, but things are very different now. The big major media. Um, And so I leave that to the experts. Publishing houses, their departments for marketing and publicity have grown exponentially because marketing is very different in 2024 than it was in 2000, than it was in 1990. It's just, the world changes. Social media has brought a whole new, you know, uh, new spotlight on work, and
Hmm.
it's just different. It's every year presents a different set of problems, but certainly the pandemic shut down book tours. Um, Publishers now have departments that arrange lectures for writers,
Mm.
and they do it as a business. They take a percentage of what the people will pay, and that's very useful. That can happen, but I don't do that. But there are literary agents who have lecture arrangements in addition to that, but I don't do that.
Okay. So about the industry itself, is it easy to break into being a literary agent?
Um, it really it requires a lot of uh, apprenticeship. I have had wonderful assistants over the years with whom I'm still friendly, and two or three of them are very well known literary agents now. But they worked for me for 5 or 6 years. Then they went out. One went to a big company. The other one started on her own and is immensely successful, represents Colson Whitehead and people like that. But it does take a while, and you have to do the grunt work, which is, reading through submissions. I no longer take submissions from, just anybody writing in, and it says that on our website. But my partner, who's been with me for 6 or 7 years, does. She looks at those and finds among them, some beginning writers, and she's very good at what she does. And so that's a, but it is an apprenticeship, and it's, as though you go to work for a publishing company, and you don't just start out as an editor, you start out as an assistant. Then you go to being an assistant editor, then an associate editor, then an editor. So it's steps up. You have to have
Hmm.
patience and really be motivated to want to do it. It's not an industry in which kids coming out of a publishing course are going to make a lot of dough. That's for sure.
I can
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
think I think that's pretty much like most industries, right? You got to kind of do the groundwork. Now,
yeah. But
you
that
you
means you've got to have somebody helping you pay the rent. You can't, you
now we
can't.
can't help them with that.
No, no. But there is support. I mean, Walter Mosley started uh, 25 years ago a publishing program at City College,
Ah,
which is he's an alum there, and he put his own money in to bring more diversification into the industry, which was shamefully, white at that point.
hmm.
And we really recently had a big celebration for the 25th anniversary, and all of the editors of color came to the party, and there it was. That was a change that one guy made,
I
right?
love it.
But then it caught on. He's not the sole person, but he had, you know, the desire to do that.
So
So
when you think about you know, when we think about industries as a whole, we see that there has been a lot of progress. Even
not
beyond,
enough, Edward.
you don't
Not
think so?
enough.
No? Well,
No, I mean, I see the movie industry certainly has changed a bit,
hmm.
but not enough.
A lot more work needs to be done.
Yeah, in the whole society, but in every aspect of it,
Yeah,
every
I
aspect. Yes.
I agree with you. I agree. Coming back to Walter Mosley, something that well, coming back to about relationships, can you share, because it seems like that's a very long time relationship you two have had,
Hmm.
so many successes, so many
Hmm.
transitions, the technology, the business has changed. Can you
Yep.
share a little bit about your relationship with him?
We're very deep old friends. Occasionally we battle.
Oh yeah.
I always listen to him. He is the
Hmm.
client. and hear him out. And most of the time, he's right. I mean, he lives in New York, but he also lives in LA, so that he's around both industries. Um, but he is the hardest working writer that I have ever seen or heard of. The guy, we're working on his 60th book, Edward, 60.
Wow.
Yep. And they just keep getting better and better. Uh, so I just handed in this latest one to his editor, who just is crazy about it.
Hmm.
And in fact, it is under option through CAA. He's represented there by a guy named William Brown and a whole bunch of people, Brian Sibrel. And they have set up this character, King Oliver, this series. So we'll see what happens. It's
Oh,
exciting to watch these
wow.
things build. Yeah, yeah,
That is incredible. And
yeah.
and
That's the
and
exciting part of it.
I can
Yep.
only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Well, kudos to all of that. That's
Uh,
amazing news. That's
why I'm
amazing
still
news.
doing it because it's so much fun and so gratifying. And I love all these people.
So when you
Talk to
say
Walter
that,
every day.
oh yeah?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's really cool.
yeah, yeah. A lot of my clients I do. Yeah.
I I need to do better. I'm a texter. I don't talk to people as much as I used
No,
to.
the human voice, the human voice.
Hmm.
Text is a different style of communication. I love it too. I mean, you can be funnier, you can be more, spontaneous. Certain things can only be, but when you hear somebody's voice, it's quite different.
You're right. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right. Shame on
yeah.
me, Ed. Shame on me. Shame on me.
No, well, you talk a lot in your work, so
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to
it's
be like,
yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
when you were talking about things, one of the things that kind of came to me and I was curious about is that with all the things and your dearth of work and everything that you've done, you have to have a driving philosophy. I would think you would have a philosophy about how you approach things. Can you share that?
Of course, but it's really very simple. I have to respect the work and the author, and then I'll do my very, very best. I'm not into, kind of lightweight, flaky stuff. I like heavy duty things. And even when they're very funny, the way Victor Laval is, uh, he came to me when he was very young. He was a student of another one of my writers. He was at Columbia. Now he teaches at the MFA program there. And he, started writing these novels, which were, in a way, kind of humorous, speculative horror, funny horror stories. And he's at it and he's just going through the roof on it. The latest one to come out, I just got the paperback, is called Lone Women. And it's about a Black woman going to the West in the 19th century. And there were some women. He had to do a lot of research. And that's under contract for a series too. But I watched him. Then there's his friend he went to Columbia with, a man named Matt Johnson, uh, who has written a novel called Pym, difficult to transition into film. But he's written a novel about Loving Day, it's called, and it's about being mixed race, as Matt is, and what that presents.
Hmm.
And anyway, they're an interesting group, the students too. And he teaches. He's a professor at the University of Oregon, Matt Johnson. So what can I say? I'm very fond of all of these people, and I respect their work, and we have a lot of fun. It's not
I
all so
love it.
serious, and like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So I have one kind of businessy question I'm curious about. And that's
Yes.
about like when we talk about like I know you mentioned that you have partnerships with like with agencies in Hollywood and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to have a relationship with publishers, right?
Oh, I do.
And the thing that I'm curious about is like, how what is it like? We see examples of people going into like, CAA or going to an agency in Hollywood and they're pitching something and then there are the negotiations and things. We just recently heard about how actors are getting paid. And as an agent, you have to have your client's best interest at heart. How
Yes.
difficult or how has that changed with the negotiations about pay and salary? I mean, and well, advances, I guess I should say, and
Yeah.
compensation and rights and royalties.
Well, I do have certain favorites in the publishing industry. There's an imprint called One World, which is part of uh, Penguin Random House Doubleday. And there's a publisher there uh, named Chris Jackson, who has several of my clients. And I know this man, I've known him for years, and I know how hard he works. And he will fight with the writer if he believes that he's right. Sometimes they fight, sometimes they don't. But he always works on the manuscript first. That's his first consideration, not just get it out there, market it. We're not going to do anything to it. And he's edited some wonderful, wonderful people. He publishes Ta-Nehisi. He published all of Ta-Nehisi. He publishes Victor Laval. He publishes Matt Johnson. I don't represent Ibram Kendi, but he publishes him. He did the 1619 project, and they are serious, about doing the books right. And it's a home for books like that. I guess he's got Trevor Noah now. But it's a wonderful organization. And then there are other publishers and editors that I like too, but I need to know that they are going to be in my writer's corner when it comes to publishing and marketing the book. So we get to know each other. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good to know. All
And
right. Well, I'm sorry.
publishers will, when they really want something, they'll pay well for it. They are under a great deal of pressure too, as most of the media world is. But if they can make their case with the business people, and they always have to, they're fair. They're fair about paying. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think that's awesome. I think that's
case
awesome.
by case thing, Edward.
Yeah.
This thing is individual. You can't kind of put things in a file, same file, same file. You can't.
Are
Each
there
book is a
any,
separate entity.
when you say that, because I would think that there's certain, like in Hollywood, I'm using this a lot as a reference. So if there's some similarities, yes. If
Yes.
not, fine. But there's just like hot topics. There's just hot topics,
Oh.
things that everybody wants. There's these buttons that everybody wants to be pressing
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So for you, I know that you seek out certain things, and let's be real, like the things that you're publishing is very important and being focused on right now in all media
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
Does it make it easier for you to get your clients out there and get your works into this space because people are
Yes.
clamoring for this now?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
They are. They are. I think
Yeah.
Ta-Nehisi kind of broke the mold with Between the World and Me. And he'll continue to do that with his new book coming up. But I think it's yes. I would agree with you that there are certain topics that, and I have been lucky enough to go along with this sweeping river of people learning about history, about American history,
Yes.
about Latin American history, about indigenous history. We have to. Americans have not been very up to date.
Can we?
And
Are we over zombies yet? Are we over zombies? Are zombies out? Are
no,
we out of zombies?
those are always fun. I mean, we have to have some fun, right? Not everything can be so serious, but that's why Victor is funny.
Yeah.
He's serious, but he's funny, and entertaining things. But yeah, no zombies and how about vampires?
Oh yeah. Oh, I have a theory about that. See, I think that zombies are dumb vampires and vampires are very smart zombies because they're right there.
Okay.
They're right there.
Okay. Do they interbreed or
Well, it's funny, like with George Romero, one of his last films, the zombies were evolving. Like they were evolving, they were learning, like they were developing like social groups, and they were like developing
yeah.
strategies on how to go after people. So I was like, I think my theory's right. I think my theory's right.
Well, in
I'm
point
going on
of
record
fact,
on this
Victor
podcast right
is
now.
writing a vampire
Oh
novel
yeah?
now. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait. Like
Yeah.
I was going through your book list on your website and I made notes of things I know I gotta buy. But I can't wait to kind of dive into some of these books. I'm so excited. I'm so
Good.
excited. And I'm
Good.
really thankful that you took the time to talk to me today
Oh,
about this industry. I learned a lot
yep.
doing some research, but having it right here from the source,
Yep.
Gloria, you are a pleasure and a gem and a treasure, and I thank you.
Oh, I was very, very happy, and it's been fun, and we had some laughing too that we did.
Yes.
Might as well. Bye, and good luck, everyone. Bye.
I love it. Take care. That was Gloria Loomis, president of the Watkins Loomis Agency. Now, in the interview, there were a number of books and projects that she mentioned. Genius MLK-X is currently streaming on the National Geographic Channel. Gloria also mentioned Walter Mosley's Joe King Oliver series. The latest book, Every Man a King, is also available wherever you find your books. And that's our show. Thanks again to the wonderful Gloria Loomis for participating in this episode of the podcast. Did you know that AAFCA has partnered with BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, for a monthly conversation series? Well, we have, and you can check out all those conversations by visiting and subscribing to the AAFCA channel on YouTube. So until next time, keep your head up.